What's up, movie rankers? This is Jake Rohn, and we are here at the premiere of The Need to Grow. We got interviews coming up with Rosario Dawson, Democratic Presidential Candidate Senator Cory Booker, Rob and Ryan, the film's directors, coming your way soon. Stay tuned. Okay, so you're hoping to impact a lot of people with this film.
Yeah.
What film impacted you so much that it influenced the way you made this movie? It could be fiction or a documentary.
I'm gonna say actually I did my first big thing that I filmed was for Sesame Street. And you know how Sesame Street does those videos of how things are made, or like kids in dance class, or like those other side videos? Right, exactly, okay. So, a neighbor in the building I grew up in was dating a cameraman from Sesame Street. And she used to teach at this school, this preschool called Children's Liberation, and they were taking all the kids to a community garden to, show the things that they'd grown and eat, and just talk about gardening for Sesame Street for a little short film they were gonna make. And she paid me $20 to be on set so I could keep the kids wrangled that weren't being used for narration or being on camera. And you can see me in this video. I'm like this tall, lanky, 11-year-old girl who got paid $20. I was so stoked. And I narrate a little bit on that. And it's talking about this community garden where there's turtles and the vegetables and the fruits, and the kids really being in this space. And I grew up in community gardens. I grew up in New York, concrete jungle, absolutely. But what I remember vividly about my childhood were the weeping willows in the community gardens on Avenue C, and just how we could just go straight upstate and be camping. You could leave the concrete jungle and all of a sudden be in just full nature. And I'm from Coney Island, so the beach and the ocean, and I've watched a lot of it change. They're doing all of these precautions now for flooding in Manhattan. The boardwalks are not nearly the same as they used to be when I was a kid. They're all filled with sand underneath. I have watched in my short time on this planet really critical, devastating changes that are not solution-based, they're Band-Aids. And this is a project, all these years later, I get to narrate and participate in a film that reconnects us to nature and our connection to it, that could solve a very big problem for not just ourselves, but for the future.
Now, how do you, one person, affect change in not just the common people, but also the corporations? I mean, has making this kind of influenced endorsements that you do, made you think differently about them?
I don't think about stuff like that, no. I mean, I guess you could, but I feel profoundly grateful that we're all in this moment together, talking about things that maybe in the past we wouldn't really be allowed to. When you see the film, you'll see people are really truly struggling and getting their message out and getting their inventions out, and the challenge and the pushback is very real. But at the same time, we have this ability to reach out to each other and connect with each other and disseminate information that we're not seeing on our news and we're not seeing in the greater narrative, and still be informed and still be connected and still make a difference and an impact. And that's what I'm really grateful about this film, is that if we didn't make it, we would not have access to this information, but we did, and now you do. And so rather than focus on that negative or what could be of the thing that could have been most tragic is not me maybe not getting an endorsement. The thing that would be most tragic is you not knowing that there's an incredible invention, or that soil could capture carbon, and we could be really thinking in a really quick scale how we can make a huge difference on a climate change issue, all of us, rather than just feeling scared and bombarded and hopeless.
Now, biopics are, I think, bigger in the last 2 years than they have been, even before that. Is there an unsung hero in all of this that you've discovered while making this project that you think there should be a biopic about?
I mean, I think there's many. Right now, I got to meet a lot of the young Native kids who came from Standing Rock, who were thinking that they can make a difference even when the elders in their community were thinking that might not be possible, because the AIM movement was so devastating, because of the history and mistreatment and the breaking of treaties of our Native people for generations. And these kids said, no, we're going to run. We're going to go to D.C. And they wrangled some of their elders to be supportive of them. And then Shailene Woodley and a bunch of us were all able to be there in New York for the first run that they did around Union Square. And there was not a lot of people, not a lot of kids. But we watched these kids, and then this movement grow powerfully that got people aware of the fact that Indigenous people are on the front lines of climate change across the board. 40%, I think it's like 30 or 40% of all murders that occur across the planet happen against Indigenous people. And it's like 1 or 2 Indigenous climate change activists are murdered every week. These are the ones who are protecting the Amazon, who are protecting our rivers, who are fighting for keeping our trees, who are protecting our oceans. And we are not talking about them, we're not celebrating them. You have Greta, who's out there doing wonderful climate change stuff, and the news will cover her, but they won't cover the Indigenous people that she has on stage with her. So that's who I would talk about, is the people who've been on the front lines of this for generations and have been giving us the solutions for generations and are still there with that wisdom, ready to help us grow to another level.
What brought you out to check out the premiere of this film?
Well, I mean, 2 things. One is that soil conservation, soil or repair. If you have a vision for dealing with climate change, this is one of the most powerful ways to make a difference. But then number 2, my girlfriend is a narrator.
Fair enough. Now let me ask you this: in the world of politics, we talk about movies all day and night. Who is the greatest fictional politician, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, art is the stuff of life. Shakes the dust off your soul. And for my family, movies was it. My father will credits being in a segregated balcony as a little boy watching a movie about a place that looked like a different planet, except for it wasn't science fiction. It was a place called Manhattan. And it was about a salesman. And fast forward 30 years, he's a salesman in Manhattan. So it's amazing what movies can do in challenging us. So I think some of the early black presidents were really interesting. The fact that Morgan Freeman was the president during a type of crisis was one of my I'm a big fan of his presidency.
Let's not forget Tiny Zeus Lister in Fifth Element.
Yes.
There was
That's some good sci-fi trivia right there.
I know, but I'm such a Debo fan from the original Friday that anything Tiny does, I'm all in on.
I respect that. I respect that a lot.
All right, now, how do you actually, affect actual change when some of your opposition is science deniers?
I mean, that's the hard thing, but the great thing about America is the power of the people is greater than the people in power. And Republicans and Democrats agree, the majority of us understand that climate change is an urgent crisis, and a lot of times our politicians are out of step with the people, and that means that the people have a job to do. So I tell people all the time, if I'm your president, I'm going to ask more from you than any president in your lifetime's asked, not to pay more taxes or to deal with more embarrassment. I'm going to ask you to engage more, because all the big jumps our society has made have been because of the activism of folks. It wasn't a bunch of men in 1920 that got together on the Senate floor, it's time for women to have the right to vote. No, we did that because people demanded the change, and that's what we need right now to meet the urgencies of climate change.
All right, last thing for you. There have been a lot of biopics recently. Who's an unsung hero whose story you think should be told?
Oh, wow. I would love to see a Harriet Tubman movie. Yeah, I think it would be really powerful, the story of the Underground Railroad. She's just one of my greatest heroes. Her statue's been on my desk since the time I was mayor. She's like my icon of what greatness is in America.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking time out for us. At what point did this become an issue that was brought to your guys' attention and meant enough that you decided to make an entire film about it?
You can hold it. Okay, cool. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think, well, as a concerned father, when I was becoming a father, I started getting involved with the food, some of the activism going on around our food system. And what woke me up really was the fact that people from all walks of life, there were veterans, there were soccer moms, there were people from all walks of life at these marches against Monsanto at the time, and that was when I first discovered Alicia, and that was what really woke me up. Like, this is an issue that transcends everything else in society. This is the environmental issue that needs to be addressed, because it's really at the pinnacle of the most important solution to the biggest problems that we need to solve.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, I think for me, I'd been studying nutrition, so I was learning a bit about the food system and the problems in the food system. And I think with a lot of folks, when they first learn about everything that's going wrong, they start to get a little bit frustrated with the issues and what can they do. And so for us, we had spent a lot of energy ourselves in meetings, in marches, in conferences, and trying to do activism against this or against that. And so we kind of asked ourselves, like, was there a way that we could shift this and look at the people who are already working on solutions? And as we discovered soil health particularly, it really just shocked us how this wasn't being talked about on a wide enough scale. This UN report came out that said we had 60 years of farmable soil left on the planet, and we were like, can we regenerate soil fast enough, or is that just the end? And as we learned more and more about the soil issue, what was really exciting was that, soil is at the root of so many environmental problems, whether it's water or food or even climate change and how we store carbon that is up in the atmosphere and needs to return back to the soil where it came from. And as you looked at soil regeneration solutions, we could actually fix so many different things at the same time. So that's why we wanted to help get this story told.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was this greenlit before or after before Rosario's involvement?
Yeah, we've been working on the film for quite some time. Before we were able to, get in touch with Rosario and show her what we had been working on. And what was really cool is that Rosario Dawson is very aware of this issue before we brought it to her attention, which was part of the reason why we were so drawn to working with her, because we wanted somebody who really walks the walk and understands the power of activism, the power of using her voice, power of an individual, and how we can create a ripple effect that can create the awareness that we need around solutions to hopefully re-energize some of the fight and frustration towards the work that we can do right now.
And did you know everything going into this film, everything that you researched, was it all in there, or was there a moment during making this that was like exceptionally jaw-dropping?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we set out to make a film about solving our food system. Like, how do we really grow enough food for everyone? And you can't really have that conversation. You can't honestly explore that conversation without focusing on soil. And that was the epiphany for us in our quest. We knew about the soil issues, but how critical that was to actually really seriously solving anything about food. And the byproduct of solving that is potentially reversing climate change and doing all these other things that are so important, water storage and all these other issues. So yeah, I think that was the main aha moment for me.
Okay, great. And then after this, what's going on with you guys next?
Yeah, we've got a few projects in the works. This film we debuted at film festivals about a year or so ago, and we're just super excited to get this out there. What's really unique, I think, about what we're able to do with this film, luckily, is we're actually giving it away to the entire world for free, starting right now. It's actually live. Anyone can see it until October 10th at theneedtogrow.com. And from there, we're hoping to create a conversation with audiences that we can, engage them in ways that it's not just about environmental health, but human health is a major component to this. And that really, if we're ever going to solve anything environmentally, we also need to be figuring out how to work together, how to focus on mental health and, cure a lot of the disease that is unfortunately running rampant just as much as these environmental issues are happening. So it's really two sides of the same coin, human health and environmental health.